Hey, ambitious dentist, welcome to Start Your Dental Practice, the show for existing and aspiring dentists to take your dental practice to the highest possible level. I'm your host, Jonathan Van Horn, CPA and ABV, founder of DentistMetrics.com. In every episode, we aim to demystify the how to start a dental practice problem by bringing on world-class dentists, influencers, and consultants in the dental industry to pick their brain about how to get past the barriers involved from going from no practice to being a practice owner to owning your own successful dental practice. Whenever I talk with a practice who is struggling to get where they want to be, the very first thing we look at is how they answer their phones. It's deceptively simple, but can often make all the difference in the world. Listening to your phone calls isn't like the sexy thing that you can do, but it can often give you tremendous insight on areas to improve. So today's guest, Matt Prados, founder of MessageMetric, has spent years mastering the art of phone tracking and knows exactly how to transform your front desk into a referral generating machine. You definitely don't want to miss today's episode. And here are a few things you're going to hear about. How to know exactly where your customers are coming from, an intelligent way to respond to insurance questions over the phone, how to improve your staff training with a single tweak, why you have to call track in your practice, how the average front desk wastes 50% of the leads, and what to do instead. Make sure to listen to the end where Matt will share an exclusive bonus to help you get started with call tracking and a few tips so your front desk can shine. Hello, ambitious dentist. Today I have with us author, speaker, renegade marketer, Matt Prados. Matt is the CEO of a really cool piece of software that I'll let us introduce here in a little bit that is really helpful for a very common problem in dental practices today. So Matt has owned a digital marketing agency in the past, as well as a few other entrepreneurial endeavors that has landed him in the dental industry. And his software does a really good job of actually fixing an issue that I literally talk to someone about probably, if not once, maybe twice a week to people around the country. This is a very common issue, and that issue is making sure we know where our patients are coming from, our new patients, as well as how they're finding out about us from other areas. And then also being able to find out the second layer of that, of how well we're actually handling those phone calls. So Matt has a really cool piece of software called Gotcha Local that helps you track this information. And so Matt, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Hey, thanks for having me. Quick little correction there. Gotcha Local is actually my digital agency, and the software is called MessageMetric. It's call tracking platform, which you alluded to, but it actually stemmed from the digital agency. 7 years of online marketing for doctors all across the United States and Canada. And we would hear from time to time, a client would say, well, we're not getting anything from our website. And, years ago, we would beat our head against the door how, one client, is getting 40 new patients a month, an hour away. Another client, claims he's getting 0. And that's actually what started us down the path of call tracking. And 7 years ago, call tracking was very rare. Very few people did it. It was extremely expensive. We were paying like $50 a phone number, and crazy amounts per usage. And for that, we didn't get recordings. We just knew the number of phone calls, so it wasn't even that effective. But we were able to prove the phone was ringing, and eventually it turned into a more useful platform, and then we evolved it even further. But yeah, absolutely happy to be here. Happy to share our experience from listening to literally thousands of patient phone calls over the last few years, and excited to help your new dentists in their adventure of entrepreneurial business ownership.
Yeah, great. So, whenever I'm looking at people's numbers, one of the first things that usually jumps out to us is like, okay, so where are your patients actually coming from? Mm-hmm. I mean, just for the people that are out there that, so this is one of those things that you think about and you're like, okay, well, obviously we're going to do that. But whenever you get in there, no one ever does it right. Mm-hmm. So how do you kind of have that conversation with somebody for the first time to say, hey, we're not really sure where these these leads are coming from, where these patients are coming from. Let's start actually tracking this. And how do you get people to kind of buy into that mentality?
Well, I mean, luckily the, industry as a whole has evolved quite a bit. I mean, if you do any kind of postcard marketing, the postcard vendor will typically give you a call tracking number. Most website providers now will give you a call tracking number, not the cheap dental websites out there for like $49 a month that are just garbage. Those guys don't give you anything at all. But so there's some understanding that you need call tracking. The problem is where dentists need to kind of grow up as an industry is they say, I'm too busy to listen to the phone calls. And then in the next sentence, where the prior sentence was, I need more new patients. Those two pieces of information go together pretty much like if you were suffocating right now and I said to you, breathe, and you said, I'm too busy to breathe, to get the oxygen I need. It's that black and white in my opinion, that, if you're not doing call tracking and listening to the calls, you're literally committing practice suicide. Whether you've been in practice for 1 day or 10 years, it's still the same thing. You've got to keep your finger on that pulse.
We just spoke with a dentist the other day, this week literally, that has had a practice that went from somewhere, just to be tangential, somewhere in the $3 million a year range, and they dropped down to $1.5 million a year in a 4-year period. And so we went back into her practice management system to look at like where her patients had came from. She was having patient flow of 200 new patients a month 5 years ago. Yeah. Now it's like 40 a month. And we have no data on where any of that information where any of those patients came from, because we weren't tracking any of it back then. And so we have a literal gold mine to tell us what was working 5 years ago versus what happened now. Mm-hmm. And we have now we have to hope that the person that's at the front desk or the doctor just happens to be able to figure out what made that difference happen. There's no evidence.
You'll never get to figure it out, unfortunately. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Without realistic statistical data and information, whether it's where the phone calls came from or, whatever you're trying to analyze, you have to have the hard facts, or else you're just guessing. You're absolutely guessing. And so much has changed over the last 5 years, from the economy to, corporate dentistry to, whatever. I mean, there's so many reasons people will assign, but none of them are necessarily the truth, because there could have been just one really great postcard that stopped going out as the reason, that could have produced 100 new patients a month if it kept going out every month. But you'll never know, because you simply don't have the information.
So another example is someone else I was speaking to someone else locally, and they were saying that they were getting nothing out of their marketing company. And I knew the marketing company that was helping them. They had a pretty good track record with some other clients. And they said, we're not getting anything from the marketing. We're spending way too much money, and we're not getting anything out of it. And so I called the marketing agency and said, hey, this is, this client's not very happy with your services. And we talked through it, and we got into it. And it turned out like they were sending a ton of leads to them. They just weren't converting anything into actual patients. So the marketing was working. It's just that there was a disconnect between the front office and that marketing message. So that's right. How does tracking your phone calls and things like that help with that disconnect?
Well, I mean, that is the reason that call tracking is absolutely vital in dentistry. And over the past 7 years, our digital agency has worked in many different verticals, and I can say without any hesitation or reservation that dental receptionists are the worst receptionists in the world. I'm not going to speak and generalize that it's all of them. Sure, there's some good ones out there, and they're good people. I'm not saying they're not good people, but the etiquette of how to answer the phone in a dental office, they don't ask for the name. they don't sound happy. They're annoyed that you called because they're handling something else, before you called. And then, a very common question that you hear is, do you take XYZ insurance? And the answer out of 99% of, dental receptionist mouth, no. That's it. Just the word no. Not let me check, or we have, competitive programs or some intelligent way to keep the conversation going. It's just the stop word no. The person says, oh, thank you, click. So when you have all this going on and you have your paper log, which the receptionist is supposed to write down all of the new patients in, or, your CRM software that, you're supposed to put the new patients in. If they don't schedule an appointment, your staff is not taking the time to write them down. And so what you think is happening is you have the best staff in the world that schedules 100% of the phone calls, because they're not telling you about all those other phone calls that aren't getting scheduled because they weren't handled properly. And whose job is it to handle them properly? Well, it's the front desk, but it is the business owner, the dentist's job to train them to do it. And frankly, dentists fall flat on their face and fail in that category 99% of the time.
So as far as being able to gauge the success of your front office in this category, like what is the, if you want to talk like a KPI, how do you track this from a graded perspective to be able to say good, bad, terrible?
Sure. So I would say the average front desk wastes 50% of the leads. So if you just think about it, if half of them are being thrown out the door, you could almost double your numbers if you fix that. Now, I don't expect anybody to schedule 100%. You'll get your, tire kickers, your looky-loos, whatever you want to call them, your bad patients, your Medicaid only, or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you should easily be able to schedule 75 to 85% of the calls to come in for, your new patient offer, your $29 exam, your free consultation, your whatever you're offering. They should at least arrive for that. Now, you're not going to sign them all up, but in that step of your sales and marketing funnel, 80% is a good benchmark to try to, say, okay, we got 100 phone calls. We scheduled 80 of them. That was a good month. That would be what I would hold my staff to a minimum of.
And so as far as being able to look at these, is this what MessageMetric helps you look at and see, like, percentage-wise of how things are going?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, there are almost as many call tracking companies as there are, dentists out there. There's no shortage of call tracking companies. There's some great ones. There's some terrible ones. And our digital marketing agency had used about 7 or 8 of them in the first 3 years, so 7 to 4 years ago. And we liked parts of all of them, but none of them had everything we wanted. And a key piece of that pie was, the conversion, the individual staff member. What were they converting? How do we compare that? And so the way we built our platform, when a call comes in, you listen to it, you have the ability to categorize which staff member handled the call. You already know based on the phone number where that marketing call is coming from. And then you have the ability to check off whether they converted or not. Now, doing it for a day or even a week, you're not going to have a lot of great data. But once you've done 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, you start to get real analytical data that you can look at and go, hey, Sally took, 100 calls and only scheduled 42 of them. But Jenny, she took 100 calls and she scheduled 72 of them. Let's only let Jenny answer the phone from now on until we get Sally trained up. And so, there's tons of reports that you can run. And, we have automated reports that can go out every day, every week, every month, however you want. But the biggest eye-opening part that I always suggest before even worrying about the individual staff members' conversion rates, because until you've listened to the calls, you haven't fixed the problem, their conversion rates are going to suck. It just is what it is. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have clients, they tell me, oh yeah, we're doing this whole campaign on how we are emergency dentistry And if you have a problem, we will handle it right now. And I say, great, I'm going to go listen to your calls. And I listen to a call, and sure enough, they got an emergency dental call in. Little boy, 10 years old, chipped his tooth, needed to get in immediately. And the girl, it was like a Wednesday afternoon. She goes, oh yeah, we can get him in next Friday. I'm like, okay, that's not going to fly, guys. Like, that's not emergency dentistry. That's same old, same old. We don't care about you and your cracked tooth. We're going to make you wait 9 days. So, there's a disconnect not only in how the phone calls are handled, how the people on the other end are not treated like people. They're treated as numbers. But there's also a disconnect between what the dentist is marketing and what they're actually delivering. What they want to be delivering and what they're delivering are two different things, simply because the staff aren't in alignment, because they don't know, they haven't been trained. We hear people call in, oh yeah, I got this postcard with this special, I want to get that. And the staff are like, we don't do that. And obviously the doctor says they do, because he just sent out, $5,000 worth of postcards saying he does, So there's multiple points of disconnect and out of accordness that happen in a dental office, but it all comes back to the dentist being able to be an effective executive and getting his team trained and on the same page. Forwarding the same messages is a crucial part of call tracking and why to use it.
I love the two words there, effective executive. Because that is so missed in so many of our entrepreneurial docs, is that, there's an old saying that it's lonely at the top, and in dentistry, you're in the back doing a lot of dental work, and a lot of the times you don't have a lot of time to work on the business. And if you're the guy that's back there thinking of talking to marketing companies to help you craft a message, and then you finally come up with one that you like, and you make the big investment, and then you forget to tell your front office, I can only imagine just how. I guarantee you, I've got one person out there listening right now that says, oops, that's saying, oops, I totally did that. I totally forgot.
Millions of dollars are wasted on marketing campaigns every year by dentists. Millions of dollars, because they simply fail to tell the staff how to handle that particular call. And one of the things that, we did in our system, so let's say you've got a postcard that has one message, you've got a website that has another. When the call comes from the postcard, there can be what's called a whisper message that says, this patient is calling from September's postcard, and the new patient special is, $9 teeth cleaning or something. Then the website can have a different one, and it can have a different whisper message. So the staff can actually be told in advance why the person's calling, so they're already thinking with that special and that type of patient. Which is a great way to, also you kind of force in the message of what they are qualified for based on what they've been offered.
So as far as just the training of the front office to be able to handle those types of calls, because obviously if you're handling someone that's calling in for an emergency, or you're having someone calling in about an Invisalign case, those two calls are going to be very different. Or even someone just calling in for a cleaning or teeth whitening. I mean, you're talking about like a $5,000 or $6,000 case versus $100 or $200 case. Those two people have to be handled very, very differently. And even someone in the front office that doesn't have customer service training or marketing training, a lot of them aren't going to just intuitively know the different way to handle those conversations. Do you have any type of guidance for the doctors out there to be able to tell them how to start that training, or not really just tell them how to start the training? Because I know I know you could probably talk a lot about how to handle conversations with different people that are coming from different messages, but how, as a business owner, you would talk to your front office people about receiving that training? Because I know a lot of doctors are scared to talk to their staff about introducing this philosophy of self-improvement amongst everyone.
Yeah, well, I mean, I never approach it as self-improvement, because then that kind of has a stigma of self-help, and even people would think religion or whatever you've got going on. So whenever I talk to my team, or if I help a client and talk to their team with them or whatever, I just talk about, look, we're doing great and we want to do better. We as a whole, we're going to do some team training. Whenever I talk about answering the phone, I basically tell people, I want you to treat the other person on the phone as if it was your mother, because it's somebody's mother, it's somebody's father, it's somebody's brother. It's a real person. They're a person, and they need to feel like you respect that they're a person. Asking for their name. I mean, common sense manners is really the first place to start. So many people simply say, hello and thank you for calling ABC Dentistry, and they stop. They don't say, can I help you? They don't say, who do I have the pleasure of speaking to? There's a million ways that you can do it. And I don't really have like a pattern that I necessarily would suggest, because you know what? The way people talk in Texas is different than the way people talk in New York. The way people talk in New York is different than the way they talk out here in California. So you have to adapt to the local culture and, the manners that would go along with that. But if you treat them like you would a family member, they're going to feel loved. And, that in and of itself is going to improve your conversion rates, because they're not going to feel the cold, hard insurance number, what's your insurance card, vibe that, all of the other dentists are doing. I would venture to bet that any dentist in any city could beat out his competition in referrals if he just got his staff to treat the patients like family. The referrals would just go out the roof.
I agree. I wish it was as easy to get that ingrained into some employees' minds as we would like it to be, but everyone receives that message a little bit differently. So you've got a lot of data being a call tracking company. It'd be remiss for me to not ask, what do you feel like is really working in the marketing world for dentists right now?
So everything that any marketing company out there is doing works to a greater or lesser degree. Getting it down in your area against your competition with what you're willing to offer to zero in on your cost per phone call is really where you're going to find what works for you. In some areas, postcards beat everything. In other areas, Google is king. There are literally, tons of different ways to, slice that cat, so to speak. But at the end of the day, if you do call tracking, there are, Google AdWords, for instance. There's so many companies that will sell Google AdWords. And most of the companies resell Google AdWords is a better way to say it, where they'll charge you, $4,000 a month, and then they'll go buy $2,000 a month in clicks, and they'll tell you all these great statistics about, your cost per click and your click-through rates and all these things, but they'll never talk about phone calls. Whereas if you zero in on, what is my cost to get a phone call, you're probably only going to spend about $500 on Google AdWords. But you're going to be able to figure out how can you get that phone to ring for somewhere between $50 and $100 is a realistic number for most companies out there. We do have clients that get calls for $25. And obviously a $25 phone call versus a $100 phone call, you get 4 for $100, you're going to get a much better return on the $25 phone call. But you're only going to be able to get the calls down on that is if you use call tracking and Google AdWords together to track conversion data in your ads, your keywords, et cetera, where most companies won't sell you that. So, and then postcards, people will, almost always use call tracking on postcards, but then you have to figure how many cards did you send? And it kind of comes down to your provider. Are they really good at getting the right list, or are they really good at picking the right keywords? How good are they at writing sales copy? Sales copy is probably the least talked about thing in marketing today, but the single most valuable asset that any marketing company has, because the message on your website or the message on your postcard is going to make a huge, huge difference. So many dentists like to, put that god awful, $250 off your next treatment special. And the copywriter that wrote that probably works at McDonald's today, because at the end of the day, if you're saying, hey, I'm going to give you $250 off your dentistry, you're screaming, I am super expensive and I can't wait to sell you a lot of stuff if I'm going to give you $250 off. Just the wording alone is terrible. Let's say your new patient visit is typically $255. I would rather you just say $5 for your new patient, exam, x-rays, and cleaning versus $250 off, because they're going to respond 100 times better to the $5 offer versus the $250 off offer. So it's not necessarily the medium, because all mediums that are being marketed to be used today in dentistry do work. It comes down to the provider and their success rate that they're going to get for you and your ability to work for them. I mean, in our digital agency, I don't claim to have 100% success, because you know what? We've had clients come on that refuse to do what we tell them to do. And so, I can get you to rank number 1 in a search engine. I can get you, a great click-through rate. But if you, want to offer, $199 new patient exam, your phone's not going to ring very often. When it does ring, it'll be a great lead, but it's going to be very, very low numbers, or if you only want to promote cosmetic dentistry, very few people search for cosmetic dentistry, so it will come down to, the individual dentist's willingness to work with the marketing agency. But most marketing agencies, out there are decent and get some sort of return, as long as they're, niche specific. The general guys out there, the real big guys, I don't ever recommend, trying to use them, because, they've got a massive staff that, huge turnover. And, what does the staff do? They come on, they read a manual of best practices, and, they tell you what they think you need. They're not the expert in that. So I would always look for the expert in that field versus, the biggest company in that field, because the biggest company just has the best sales force. That's kind of, a very typical thing in marketing for dentistry. So long-winded answer, but it all works. It just comes down to your area, and a little bit your target market. I mean, let's face it, if your target market is 70-year-old, retired veterans in South Florida, you know what? The internet's probably not the best idea for you. I would go Postcards, if you want the younger crowd and you're building a family practice, Postcards get thrown out a lot more by young people than, if they're looking for you on the internet. Google is the new Yellow Pages, Facebook, they hang out on all the time. So it's going to depend a lot for new docs. The single biggest thing that you can do to build your practice at little to no expense is to get tons and tons of 5-star reviews, because no matter what, whether it's a postcard, whether it's a freestanding insert, whether you're at whether you've got a booth at a local health fair, people are going to look you up on the internet. And if you don't have reviews, you're nobody. If you've got bad reviews, you're worse than nobody. And if you don't have the most reviews in your town, you're still nobody. So how many reviews should you have? Look at your competition. How many stars? At least 4.5 and above. Below 4.5, you've got a bad reputation. As long as it's above 4.5, the phone's still going to ring. And another great tip, more call tracking orientated for new practices. When you're brand new and you're opening a practice, you can actually use a call tracking number as your Google Places phone number, and that number will get distributed all over the internet. And you'll be able to still rank and do those things, but you'll be able to track every single phone call that comes into your office from anywhere by never publishing your actual landline phone number and only using call tracking. And that will give you the biggest wealth of data as far as how your calls are handled, how your staff handle these calls. And so if you are less than 6 months in practice, I would switch over to having a call tracking number on everything. And you can actually port your landline into a call tracking company and make that a call tracking number as well if you've been around longer. But recording everything, having the statistical data, whether you're using it right now in this month or 3 years from now, it's something you want to have, and you want to have it forever. So don't go jumping from, one platform to another platform, because then you lose the data. Once you have the data, keep it, stick with it, and really analyze your data. Just like Jonathan talks about with managing and doing finances, the data, the wealth is in the data and what you do with the data. I mean, having the data is not enough. I mean, you can know why you're, bleeding, but if you don't stop the bleeding, you're still going to die, So, it's very important to act on the data as well.
Yep. My new motto is execute, track, and refine. So execute, track, refine. Mm-hmm. Get out your marketing message, like you said. You've got to track it, and what better way to track it is to actually, rather than, so a lot of people nowadays, they'll I spoke at the beginning of the episode about how there's an issue with people just tracking where patients are coming from. A lot of people see that problem and they say, okay, well, we're going to add a form whenever a new patient comes in for the first time. And it's just like, that is not always the best way to do things. Now, no amount of tracking is ever perfect, but if we give someone a list of, say, 10 choices of where they came from, they're not going to know if they were from a mailer or a Google ad or anything like that, or a referral, or, they just saw the sign.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying to not use those things, but I'm saying that you do need to have something that is more of a proof that can automatically track for you. And if you're doing just a piece of paper as your only form of tracking that, then you're only seeing the successes. You're not seeing the opportunities that you lost.
Right.
So the phone is the perfect kind of filtering mechanism to be able to say, where did they hear about us, or it may not even be the end result of where they heard about you from, but that's how they got your phone number, one way or the other.
Right.
So
it's not necessarily the first touch, but it's definitely the one that was preceded the phone call. As mm-hmm. long as you have different phone numbers for each of your marketing methods. I mean, if you want to get, real fancy with call tracking, we can change the number on a website dynamically depending on where where the visitor came from. So for AdWords, they see one number. For Google Organic, they see another number. For Bing Organic, they see another number. Yahoo Organic, another number. Yahoo Paid, Bing Paid, Facebook. I mean, you can literally, Yellow Pages, you can have so many different numbers and really track it. Now, some numbers may get, one or two calls a month or even a year, but it gives you an idea. And you also get to find out, does anything come from that? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. The other thing, I mean, postcards are probably one of the most well-known marketing pieces in dentistry, but with postcards, if you're going to send out 1,000 postcards, you should send 500 of one with one message and 500 of another with another message, and they have two different call tracking numbers on it, and you find out which message resonates with your list that you're sending. Then you know which message is better. Then you make another message to compete with that message. And if you continue to try to test your messages against your market and your mediums against each other, the other mediums, you're going to be able to find out what does it actually cost to get the phone to ring, to acquire a new patient, et cetera. And, let's say you start out at a $500 new patient acquisition and your new patient average value is only $500. You at least have a starting point of, now, how do I work that down from break even to profitable? And then, continue until you're making, double your investment, and then triple your investment, and then 4 times your investment in marketing. So if you spend $1,000, initially you might only make $1,000, then you test it. And then the next time you spend that $1,000, you make $2,000. If you keep doing that in business, you keep getting better returns. You're obviously going to have more success, and you're going to be able to spend more money on marketing. And then no matter what is happening in the world, anywhere, if you can outspend your competition in marketing, you will win. You will beat the competition no matter how many there are, whether you picked an office that's in a dental building that has 100 other dentists, which is the craziest thing to do in the world to begin with. But if you can outmarket those other 99 dentists, even though you're killed in that building, you will still win the game.
Absolutely. And so, as far as the way that the software works, does somebody just have to just sign up on the website and then they've got to have a technician come out and install the phone, or how's it work?
No, it's so much easier than that. So it's all web based. So it doesn't matter whether you have a PC or a Mac. You've got your landlines. Those stay intact. No technician has to come to your house or your office. You continue using those phones and those phone lines. But what we do is we basically stick a number in between the patient and your landline so that when the direct mail piece hits, they call the tracking number, which then forwards to your landline, and we record it through our system that way. And so you can literally set up, 5 or 10 numbers in about 15 minutes on the website, and that includes putting all your information in for the first time and immediately start tracking your results. If you want to get fancy and, track, whether they, saw a postcard and then went to your website and then called. I mean, there's all kinds of things that we can do that are advanced. And, I can always do consultations to help doctors figure out how to maximize their ability to track things in their office. But first and foremost, your eyes will be completely opened for the first time as to how your staff actually handles the phones by simply putting one call tracking number on your website and leaving it there for a couple weeks and then starting to listen to these phone calls. You will absolutely be shocked. I mean, I have had people tell me they literally threw up in their mouth the first time they listened to phone calls. They're shocked at the amount of waste of the leads and the new patients, from that just one phone number alone. So without getting overwhelmed in all the different ways you can track, just start with that one, and it will definitely improve your business.
It's a great example of how to get started with the execution. So I think I'm actually going to take away the term an effective executive, and you need to be an effective executive that executes is the new thing. So Matt, thank you for your information so far. So if you were, I asked this of a lot of people that are outside of the industry that are connected to the dental industry. If you were starting, for whatever reason, I don't know the rules in California, if you were going to be starting a dental practice from a marketer's mind, from an entrepreneur's mind, what do you feel like because you see patient information, successful marketing and non-successful marketing, different campaigns and things like that. What would be your strategy for starting a dental practice or coming into a practice as a new owner?
Mm-hmm. So, my strategy would be the same exact thing that I tell all my clients in the digital agency, and it's simple. You need to be number one on Google organically. You need to be number one in the maps with the most reviews. If you don't have, let's say you're number one in the map section, but the number 2 and number 3 guy have way more reviews than you have, they're going to get all the new patients. You're not going to get any. You got to have the 5-star reviews in more volume than anybody else, and then you got to have the AdWords number 1 section as well. And the bottom line is people don't use the yellow pages anymore. They go straight to the internet, and those are the 3 factors. And then use call tracking, because your staff won't care to do as good job if they don't know you're not listening. If they don't know you're listening to them, as soon as you tell them that you're listening to them, they will automatically start doing better just from the idea that you are listening. And then I would start split testing postcards with a company that has proven results on postcard messages. Between postcards and the internet, you could easily start pushing 50 to 100 new patients a month. You're going to have a budget for it. I mean, it's not going to be cheap. It's going to cost a couple $1,000s a month between the 2 mediums at least. I'm sure you can start, as cheap as possible, but at the same time, hey, you're probably $300,000 in debt right now. You spent all that money, and now you want to be cheap on how to make money. I would start with a bigger budget, as long as it's a proven company, to get the new patients coming in immediately, because I'll tell you what, beans and rice don't taste good very long, and you're going to want to start eating better. And as a business owner, beans and rice is all you can afford in the beginning sometimes.
It was a ham sandwich for me, but yeah.
Ham sandwich, grilled cheese. Yeah. I mean, sometimes you get to go out and do it up with some chicken nuggets.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, if you do postcards and you do the internet, you should be able to have plenty of new patients to build a practice very rapidly. But you got to keep an eye on that reputation and get those 5-star reviews. So part of your marketing strategy should be definitely getting reviews. from each and every patient that comes through. Even if it's not a good review, let them give you bad feedback. Obviously, you don't want it to make it on Google, but get that feedback and just continue to improve your practice by, looking at your numbers and confronting them. So many business owners, whether it's dentistry or anything else, will run from the numbers. They will, go home and they had a bad day and they, pop open a 6-pack and, they're going to forget about it. Look at your numbers, take responsibility for your numbers. Don't blame your staff. If your staff is messing up, it's your fault. Train your staff. Get in control of your own life by using the numbers. That's, the long and the short of it. Any dentist can be successful in any part of the world, really, if they, control their environment and, manage their practice off of analytical data.
Love it. Perfect message. Perfect tie into the overall message of our podcast too. And that's, the name of my company is MessageMetric. So it's just tracking your numbers, making sure that you stay on there and you hold people accountable for the things that happen. So I love the message. It was really great getting to connect with you. I appreciate your time. You've been very helpful today. Is there anything else that we need to cover that we may not have talked about?
Closing tips, I would say, I don't care who your answering service is, they suck. Listen to those calls. Don't let your phone go to voicemail during business hours. That's insane. These things happen day in and day out. And, it blows my mind. And, also, like I said, on emergency dentistry, if you want to promote that, you better make sure you have slots open every day. But track those numbers and, just get smart. You don't need training on how to answer the phone. If you just listen to how people are answering the phone, you will come up with a solution. You were smart enough to make it through dental school. You can figure out how to, get people to answer the phone properly in your office if you confront it. If you don't look at it, you're never going to confront it and you're never going to fix it.
Love it. Great information again. So Matt, if anyone wants to reach out to ask any follow-up questions or look into the MessageMetrics and be able to actually look and see how things are going there, what's a good way for them to be able to get in contact with you?
Just our website, MessageMetric.com, is a great way. You can, grab our phone number there. You can always give me a call. There's going to be a special offer. We're going to help out your subscribers here as well. So there'll be, that link that you can provide them for that. But, just reach out. We're definitely willing to help. And, we've been doing it long enough. We know all the problems you're going to have before you even have them.
Fantastic. Well, again, thank you, Matt, for your time. We appreciate it and have a good day.
Thanks a lot, Jonathan. You too.
A special thanks to Matt Prados for sharing a gold mine of information on how to really improve your front desk communication. I truly believe if you do apply just a few of the suggestions you heard today, you'll see some incredible results. Now, as you heard, just changing a few sentences when speaking on the phone can have a major impact on how potential patients view your practice. So as a bonus for today, Matt has put together a guide on how to get started with call tracking and a few tips and tricks your front desk will absolutely love. To get that bonus, simply text PRACTICE to 33444. Again, that's PRACTICE to 33444, or visit startyourdentalpractice.com/bonus if you're outside of the US. You'll also receive updates on the latest episodes of Start Your Dental Practice, helpful tips for owning and running a practice, and promotional opportunities direct to your inbox. So that's it for today's episode, but that doesn't mean that the learning and implementation have to stop there. I've created a free report called The 15 Numbers That Will Make or Break Your Dental Practice. This report has been downloaded over 1,000 times by dental professionals. So if you want your free copy of this report that's going to outline what the most important numbers are in any dental practice, and it also includes how to look at your numbers, how to set goals, has a whole slew of really important information that is the culmination of all of my experience as a dental CPA, then just go to startyourdentalpractice.com/free gift. That is startyourdentalpractice.com/free gift. And so that's it for today, Ambitious Dentist. Again, I'm Jonathan Van Horn, CPA and ABV. I'll see you next week with another world-class practice owner or consultants that will help you start your very own dental practice. Thank you guys so much for being a part of the Start Your Dental Practice community. If you enjoyed today's episode, please do me a favor and go to startyourdentalpractice.com/iTunes to leave your honest feedback and review on iTunes. It's going to help me create a better experience, a better show, a better podcast for you, the ambitious dentist. Your feedback really does help, regardless if you liked the show today or not. If you didn't like the show, let me know, because it's going to help me create a better show and podcast for you. Lastly, if you know of anybody that would benefit from today's episode and today's content, today's guest, please feel free to share with them on social media or through email.